This slide shows something. This shows U.S. corn exports, or use actually. So what it shows is that, and it's a projection, a recent USDA projection out beyond 2015. So what it actually shows is that U.S. corn exports are at an all-time high at a time when we're using 20% of the land in the U.S. for fuel production. And so the fuel production is the gray part of that figure, and you can see that it's gone from very little to quite a major use. But it has not affected our use of corn for any other purpose as yet, including, as I noted, exports. And you can see that in the USDA projection, that continues far into the future. And this slide also shows something that's highly relevant, which is the reason that's possible is that this slide is showing that since 1980, the use of land for crop production in the United States dropped from around 300 million acres to 250 million acres, and is projected to remain that way quite far into the future. And so it reflects a very strong disconnect between the basic idea that somehow all the land is already being used, and therefore to make more agricultural product you have to bring more land into production. In fact, it's generally not true. The most conservative ecologist would acknowledge there's at least 500 million hectares of degraded land around the world. Degraded meaning land that has been used for agriculture and has fallen out of production. The FAO estimates up to 2 billion hectares of land around the world. And so I would also point out that one of the problems in agricultural production has been that the developed world has been subsidizing agriculture to the tune of something in the order of $300 billion a year in the EU and the US. The net result has been that corn, 30% of farm income roughly is subsidies in the developed world. And commodities are sold below the cost of production. And they're generally, because they're overproduced, they're dumped elsewhere in the world below the cost of production. That in turn has suppressed the development of agricultural economies elsewhere in the world, so that, for example, in Africa, corn production yield is only 20% approximately that of the US on a per acre basis. And to give you an example of what a small investment in agriculture can do to productivity, there was an article recently in Chemical Engineering News which pointed out that 3 years ago in Malawi in Africa, 5 million people were entirely dependent on grain imports for their food. And 3 years ago, the Malawi government made a small investment in supporting, subsidizing seed purchases and fertilizer. And today, Malawi is a net exporter of food. So the notion that somehow all the land is being used is a very bad notion, and that the only way to expand productivity is to cut down the forests is a very bad idea. I have the next slide. I just want to, in that respect, point out something about what is really driving the expansion of acreage into undeveloped land. This slide shows soybean oil imports, and you probably can't see it, but if you just focus, for example, on the pink area, the pink area is showing India's soybean oil or soybean imports, and you can see that in 1995 they didn't import anything, and today they're one of the major importers. The gray bar is China's imports. And you can see a very similar thing. In 1990, they had none, and today they're a major importer. And if you ask where is that import coming from, the gray bar in this case is Brazil. By contrast, the green shows the United States soy production has remained actually flat. And so what's actually happening, and the major driver for the land development, at least in Brazil, is demand for protein in the expanding economies elsewhere in the world. And it actually has nothing to do with biofuels at present. So it's not to say, something bad might not happen in the future, but I think that there's a kind of a misunderstanding of what it is that's actually driving food prices and the use and the expansion of land into the forests. And I would also point out that, well, maybe I'll just stop there.